Alina and Finn had shared their lives for nearly a decade and a half. Their journey included raising a daughter, now 13, and a son, 11. Their union was solid, a model of marital harmony, as they navigated life's challenges together with a commitment to amicable resolution rather than strife. One afternoon, Alina's phone rang with news from her mother's neighbor. Her mother was unwell and required her assistance urgently. Without a second thought, Alina entrusted Finn with the care of their children and set off for her mother's village. Finn grumbled under his breath, resigned to his responsibilities while Alina attended to her familial obligations. This separation, though inconvenient, seemed timely for their weary bond. Over recent times, the subtle signs of emotional distance had crept into Alina and Finn's relationship. The cozy evenings spent cuddled on the sofa, engrossed in films, had vanished. Conversational exchanges about their days, or shared nostalgic memories, had dwindled to obligatory small talk. "How was work?" Alina would inquire as Finn walked through the door. "Busy, on calls all day." "How about you?" he'd reply, while mechanically pecking her cheek. They briefly touched on routine matters like the children's educational struggles or tutoring expenses, and that was the extent of their dialogue. Finn harbored a desire to rekindle the spark they once enjoyed, but felt clueless as to how that could be achieved. Alina perceived the fading flame of their relationship just as Finn did, yet she lacked the yearning to reignite old passions. In her view, the cooling off after nearly 15 years together was a natural progression. While she respected and cared for Finn in a familial sense and acknowledged her enduring affection for him, her romantic feelings had significantly diminished. Thus, when the opportunity arose to aid her mother, Alina was secretly relieved for the chance to step away, to breathe, to find solitude. Upon her return, Alina immediately immersed herself in the cares of her mother, Sarah. Her mind couldn't wander anywhere else. After finishing the inevitable household chores, she enjoyed a short respite, moments that belonged only to her. Soon her attention turned to tidying up her mother's house. She took up repairs and cleaning. The mother, who was gradually gaining strength, was overjoyed by her daughter's presence. Although phone calls between them were frequent, their face-to-face meetings were rare. Alina was absorbed in her family and 2 children, while Sarah was busy with her household duties, which made it difficult for her to break away for visits. When it came to heavier lifting during the renovations, their neighbor Brady stepped in to assist. Alina recalled him as a gawky adolescent speckled with freckles, yet now he was a grown man, robust, with closely trimmed hair. His freckles had faded, barely noticeable. It struck Alina, for the first time since they had reconnected, that he was actually rather handsome. That evening, her mother revealed that Brady's wife had left him for the city, finding the rural lifestyle unbearable. Alina couldn't muster surprise at this revelation and harbored no judgment. Living rurally wasn't everyone's cup of tea. Despite her own rural upbringing and a stint at university, the city's allure and prospects had kept Alina from returning to the pastoral life. Alina found that Brady, now her reluctant helper, wasn't much for conversation. She attempted to engage him with memories from their school days in the village, but his replies were curt, and he quickly shifted focus back to the task at hand, which irked her. After the renovations were complete, she proposed a celebration, dinner, and perhaps a drink or 2 to toast their accomplishments. Brady's demeanor softened, a smile crossed his face, and he accepted. Later, puzzled over something, Alina queried her mother. "What was it I asked Brady?" Sarah, slightly irritated, brushed off the question. "Oh, stop fussing about. He's not that kind of guy," she retorted sharply. The evening was indeed warm and inviting. The ladies relished the newly updated place, and Brady savored the delectable meal the landlady had whipped up for him. Alina lost track of how often her mom showered her neighbor with gratitude for his assistance. She was well aware that all this nonstop chatter about Brady's goodness and his so-called golden hands was, in a way, directed at her. Her husband, Finn, was practically hopeless with manual tasks. However, He would always shell out money willingly for any experts needed to fix things in their home. Brady wouldn't dream of lending a hand to his mother-in-law with repairs, and it drove Sarah up the wall. Ages ago, it was her mom who tried to convince Alina not to settle with Finn and suggested she consider other prospects. Alina never regretted choosing her spouse and firmly believed she was fortunate to have him. Just that now, their circumstances were different. After a few drinks, Brady opened up and turned out to be a genuinely engaging conversationalist. Their chatter stretched late into the night, persisting even after Sarah called it a night. Alina herself assumed a countryman would be unschooled, thinking solely about his duties and chores. She never imagined she'd be discussing not just his work and materials, but also the books he dabbled in during his leisure time. "You've grown so beautiful, Alina. You were always lovely, but now you've blossomed even more," Brady remarked unexpectedly, beaming. His companion's words flustered her. She playfully slashed the air with her hand and returned to smile, satisfied. "I remember having a crush on you back in 10th grade. Each day, I mustered the courage to confess my feelings, but I was unbearably shy," he revealed. "Better late than never, at least I can tell you now." Alina suddenly felt an overwhelming urge to press her entire being against the hulking, awkward man and plant a fervent kiss on him. She wasn't about to deny herself that indulgence. Brady mirrored her actions, pulling her as close as humanly possible. To avoid waking Sarah, she stumbled to his house, laughing boozily. Alina could say without any guilt that those few weeks with Brady had been a breath of fresh air for her. In her marriage, she had utterly forgotten what it felt like to experience such potent emotions. Each night was a revelation, a chance to explore something new within herself while reveling in the company of her lover. She shuddered at the thought of returning to the city soon, but still could not avoid it. Her children were waiting for her at home, and despite the fact that they were no longer so young, they undoubtedly needed a mother. Brady got the picture, although he couldn't hide his sadness. "Why don't you talk to your husband and come back here?" he asked. Alina smiled sadly and replied that it was impossible. "I have children, understand? I don't want to hurt them. Let's think of it as a vacation hobby that's about to end. Only a gentle longing will remain." Upon returning to the city, the burdens of family life pounced on her immediately. It felt like all the problems had been shelved into a box labeled, "Until Mom gets back," only to tumble out in her absence. She was irate and constantly on edge, lashing out at her loved ones. Deep down, Alina was aware that her wretched mood stemmed from parting ways with Brady, but she couldn't bring herself to admit it, not to herself, nor to her family. She kept seething helplessly and couldn't resist the attempts to restore her familiar domestic existence. One day, Finn couldn't stand another attack of criticism from his wife and asked her directly what her problem was. Ellen's gaze pierced through him, and she said in a decisive voice, "We need to get a divorce." It was as if lightning had struck. Finn, realizing that he would no longer be able to keep his wife by his side, despite the fact that they had lived together for many years, agreed. She did not, however, leave for Brady. Although she did not love him, she was grateful to him for giving her the courage to end the marriage. Alina raised her children alone, and when they grew up and moved, she found herself on her own. Alina did not regret her decision. Having lost Finn as a husband, she gained him as a dear friend. The former spouses did their best to support each other and keep in touch, but both were deeply lonely and did not want to let anyone new into their hearts.